What's up, beautiful coaches? Joel here, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to rapidly regain momentum. Now, momentum is like the ultimate drug in life and business. It's, I think, the feeling, the sense that we are all seeking, that feeling of being in full flow, effortless flow, where everything is coming easily to you, where you feel unstoppable, unshakable, you're getting quick results and easily results. And it's a feeling that I've spent most of the last 3 years in, at least. And I've created a momentum formula for myself, which is what I'm about to share with you. And it's what I've used to get back into momentum after 5 weeks completely off work. Last week, I was feeling pretty low momentum. This week, I already feel unstoppable, unshakable, in full flow. And it's just a matter of stringing together a few of these weeks. And again, I'm going to be unstoppable even more so. So what I'm about to share with you is my momentum formula. But what I would say is take what resonates and let go of everything else. Just one of these 7 steps to regaining momentum could be the complete game changer for you. So all you need is just one of these. So listen carefully, listen for what resonates, and let go of everything else. So the first step in regaining momentum is actually just relax. What I've noticed from coaching hundreds of people now is that when someone feels low momentum or perhaps stuck, it's essentially created by low quality thoughts. And often those thoughts are driven by comparison, by the ego of I'm behind. And especially that thought of I'm behind that drives a lot of people suffering. What I've noticed though, after being in business and entrepreneur for the last 6 to 7 years now, is that there are seasons for being ahead, there's times for being ahead, and there's times for being behind. And it's our mind that creates the suffering in the times that we're behind, and also times ahead, because we get attached to that situation and we think that's going to last forever. But of course, if we get attached to the times when we're ahead and the next month we have a harder month, we create suffering. And of course, vice versa. This is in essence what Buddhism teaches us, is that the root of all suffering is created by attachment and craving. So the first step is actually just relaxing, understanding, like with nature, business operates in seasons. It ebbs and it flows. And if we are all tight and stiff and feel like we can control this, we're going to create so much suffering. And I just want to turn now to one of my favorite verses from the Tao Te Ching, which has taught me so much about being and living, and also business. And I think you'll understand why when I read it. So it says, "Do you think you could take the universe and improve it? I do not believe it can be done. Everything under heaven is a sacred vessel and cannot be controlled. Trying to control leads to ruin. Trying to grasp, we lose. Allow your life to unfold naturally. Know that it too is a vessel of perfection. Just as you breathe in and breathe out, there is a time for being ahead and there is a time for being behind. A time for being in motion and a time for being at rest. A time for being vigorous and a time for being exhausted. A time for being safe and a time for being in danger. The master sees things as they are without trying to control them. She lets them go of their own way, and resides at the center of the circle." Wow, that verse is by far one of my favorites, and it's so beautiful. Let your life unfold naturally. Trust that you are exactly where you're meant to be. And with that quality thinking, you're going to relax and you're actually going to see things far clearly. That's not a word. Far more clear. And in that clarity, you'll be decisive and you'll start to rebuild momentum. Plus, a relaxed coach is a magnetic coach. So really relax into life. Now, this doesn't mean become complacent, far from it. What it means is ride life. Allow life to take you. And when you are on the crest of a wave, ride that. Ring it out. enjoy that time, but understand that there will be times where things aren't as fluid or aren't as in flow, and also surrender to that. That might be a time to relax. That is why I've taken the last 5 weeks off, because August tends to be a pretty slow month in business. And it's summer here in Europe where I want to work less. There's a time for being behind and there's a time for being ahead. You also need this contrast. So when you are behind, celebrate that, because what that does, it fuels desire to get ahead again. If we were always ahead, there would be no contrast, there would be no desire, and we would actually become even more complacent. So we actually need this contrast. So the first step is relax. The second step is getting into alignment. For me, this is the foundation of living in flow and having high momentum. Now, when I feel in flow, everything feels aligned. My head, my heart, my hands, my feet, everything feels aligned. And my formula for this alignment is really simple. Essentially, every 8 weeks, I create a new sprint. Because I think a big mistake a lot of people make is living life like a marathon runner. It was certainly true for me. I once had the burnout because I was just always on. I was never off. Even when I was relaxing, I was chilling out on a sofa scrolling, which wasn't actually being fully off. Now I live my life like a sprinter, where I operate in these intense bursts of focus, and then I have these times where I deeply disconnect and completely rest. My wife says to me she cannot believe how quickly I can fall asleep, because I have an amazing ability to just immediately switch off. When I stop work, it's like boom, work's done. I'm now fully engaged with my daughters, my family, skating, whatever it is. I'm completely off. I'm living life like that sprinter. And how I design my life is with these short bursts of sprints followed by a period of relaxation. So what that looks like is an 8-week cycle where I'm focused for 6 weeks and have 2 weeks off. This was once 12 weeks, but I realized 12 weeks is actually too long for me. So I like to operate in 6 weeks of intense focus, 2 weeks to kind of tie up loose ends, and then I move on to the next. This allows me to stay agile because I like change, I like new things, and that's something I know about myself. But I also, to counterbalance that, I need a period of focus. And 6 weeks is what I feel is a long enough period to build momentum, to rebuild that momentum and get results again. So here's my process. Firstly, every 8 weeks I do, and every 8 weeks I go through this process. I revisit my values, my vision, and my mission to really just pull me into, really fuel that internal drive. I live in a very relaxed atmosphere in a surf town in Portugal. Everyone's pretty chill. There's no external motivation here. So for me, this internal drive is even more important. So that fuels my internal drive. I then redesign my perfect average day to just, again, reconnect to the life that I want and make sure I'm living closer to life as much as possible. The next thing is I set my 1-year goals and my 8-week year goals for energy, work, and love, just the 3 key areas of my life. And I just brainstorm them all, and then I pick one. I ask myself, if I could only achieve one of these, which would make all the others irrelevant? So I have one goal for the next 8 weeks, one goal for the next year. That's aligned with my vision, my mission, my values. So I have this alignment. I then essentially schedule in my non-negotiables and my marketing campaigns. So my non-negotiables are things like cultivating creative force, exercise, time with my family, deep work, prospecting, all these things. These are my non-negotiables. Content creation, these are my non-negotiables, and I schedule them in. Stephen Covey said, schedule your priorities. Don't prioritize your schedule. Most people prioritize their schedule. I schedule my priorities and I manage my energy, not my time. So I know that certain days are better for me for content creation, so I make those my content creation days. Some days are better for me for coaching, so I make those my coaching days. I schedule my priorities, so I know in the day what I'm going to do. And again, I have that alignment. I know how my actions today will get me to my 8-week year goal, which will get me to my 1-year goal, which will get me to my values, my vision, my mission, and I have that alignment. So now I have my non-negotiables scheduled in. I now identify my biggest bottlenecks in my business. This will either be lead gen, lead nurture, conversion, delivery, retention, resale, and referrals. It'll be one of those 5. Essentially, I identify the biggest bottleneck and I brainstorm all the projects that could solve that bottleneck. And I pick 1 to 3 of those and I schedule them in over the next 6 weeks. And then that is it. So I have that alignment, values, vision, mission, 1-year goal, 8-week year goal, have my non-negotiables, and then the projects that are going to get me, the projects that are going to solve the biggest bottleneck, which will get me to my next 8-week year goal. So I have that alignment. With that alignment, I trust it, I trust the process, and with that, I regain that momentum and I feel in full flow. So the number 3 is cultivating creative force. There's a quote that I really live by, which is, it's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking and feeling than it is to think and feel your way into a new way of acting. So I'll invite you now to just smile. Smile. Do you feel happier? Of course you do. This is the power of the body. This is the power of the principle of act as if. Now, this is not about faking it till you make it. This is about using your most powerful resource, your body. So every morning, I use my body to get into the state that I want to be in. I call this cultivating creative force because I believe we are all here to create, to express, to allow source, the Tao, to flow through us. So every morning I create and cultivate this connection to the Tao by using my body, by using the breath, and I cultivate this creative force, and then I just surrender. I believe flow comes from discipline plus surrender plus systems, but that discipline to do this every single day. For me, I wake up super early. Today that was 4 a.m. Usually it's 5 a.m. I wake up super early. I cultivate this creative force. I jump into the cold plunge. I do some breath work. I do some dance, and then I surrender. I ask, how can I be of service today? And what came through today was record this YouTube. I've surrendered to that, and I'm just trusting that. But there's an amount of discipline and then there's an amount of surrender. When you combine the two, you will operate and live in flow. This is what I do every single day. Cultivate creative force. This is the power of the body. So many people are stuck in their head, overthinking things, ruminating things, especially when you're in low momentum, stuck in a rut. You're often stuck in your head. What I would suggest is just trust in the power of your body. And what I suggest is going to the opposite embodiment. So for example, when I'm stuck for content ideas, I will go to the opposite embodiment. So I will go into dance, and in that dance, ideas will come. In fact, it's where I get all of my ideas. If I'm procrastinating, what I'll do is I'll go for a walk, a power walk, and I have a power walking playlist, or I'll go for a run, or I'll do some press ups. And in that action, that forward motion, clarity reveals itself. I have a saying, clarity reveals itself in momentum. If you're procrastinating, just move forward. That might be a run, that might be a walk, that might be lifting weights. If you're feeling airy and kind of all over the place, get grounded, come back down, go to the opposite embodiment, come back down, sit in stillness. You might want to go in earth, get your feet connected to the ground. Or you might want to do some yoga, really come down, earth. Our body is the greatest asset for both awareness and change. And it's in using it that you'll unleash and tap into your full force. Trust that you'll be back in momentum and flow very, very quickly. Number 4 is embracing the mayhem. Now, around 6 years ago, I was on a tube outside Sloane Square in London, and I had a panic attack. I had this unwavering feeling of wanting to cry. My throat started closing, and I was like, "Ah, what's happening?" Ran off, and I found the nearest bench, and I just bawled my eyes out. For the next 2 weeks, I was an emotional wreck. I was all over the place. And what I realized was that I was building a food tech business at the time. What I realized is that I was so stuck in my head, trying to control everything. But the nature of business that is wildly out of control. I was building a food tech business with a tiny team, raising money. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was trying to juggle all the balls. I was trying to keep everything under control. But what I've learned about entrepreneurship is that you've got to let fires burn. You've got to embrace the mayhem. You've got to realize it's wildly out of control. And the trick is picking what fire to put out and letting all the other fires burn, embracing the mayhem. And what I see a lot of coaches doing is they're so addicted to control that they put out the wrong fires. They put out the easy fires, like emails, like Slack messages, like Instagram messages, like WhatsApps, like building a website. It makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they're in control, but they're working on the wrong fires. They're putting out the wrong fires. And I know this to be true because this was once me. I was so addicted to control. But this insight of embracing the mayhem has allowed me to let go of the low leverage tasks, the things that aren't important, and focus on the high leverage tasks, the fires that do need putting out. And in that, I've rebuilt momentum and I focus on the big tasks. So embrace the mayhem, realize you can't do it all, and great, that forces you to make tough decisions. And it's in those tough decisions that you're going to rapidly rebuild momentum, because you're going to focus on the high leverage tasks, that will get you results. And in those results, it'll fuel confidence. And in that confidence, you'll take bigger and bolder action. And in that bigger and bolder action, you'll have more momentum. And then you'll be like that steam train that's just building momentum. And then eventually you'll feel unstoppable. But it starts with embracing the mayhem. So number 5 is slowing down time. I believe you can tell a lot about the consciousness or the level of consciousness or the vibration you're in by how you relate to time. So last week, came back from 5 weeks of holiday. I felt pretty low vibration. I felt pretty low momentum at times. And I noticed my thoughts were, I'm behind, driven by my ego, driven by comparison. And in that, I felt very scattered because I was rushing, I was impatient, and I was just jumping from thing to thing to thing. And because I felt like everything was a rush. Alex Hormozy says, distraction kills more businesses than competition does. And it's so true. And I think a lot of people's distraction is fueled by this impatience, fueled by this thought of, I'm behind. It's a low level of consciousness that you'll be in if that's a thought you're in. When you're in a high level of consciousness, when you're in abundance, when you're in wealth consciousness, you also have this feeling that there is so much time. There is no rush. And in that, you actually slow down time. Time is just an illusion. Time is just relative. You can spend a minute with Pamela Anderson. Terrible example. She's not my high school crush, maybe. Anyway, another story. You can spend a minute with Pamela Anderson and it can feel like an hour or maybe 10 seconds to you. You can put your hand on a hot stove for an hour and it will feel like a minute. Is that the right way around? You know what I'm saying. Anyway, we can slow down time by the level of consciousness we're in. Sorry. You cannot put your hand on a hot stove for, I just did that completely the wrong way around. Right, you could put your hand on a hot stove for a minute and it feels like an hour. You can spend an hour with Pamela Anderson and it can feel like a minute. I'm sorry. This is too late to not record. Moving on. Slow down time by increasing the level of consciousness you're in. Number 6 is removing friction. So I used to snooze for hours, literally hours. And because of that, I was pretty low confidence. And that low confidence fueled low momentum, low action. And I was so frustrated with myself when I was a snoozer. I really remember that feeling of just, I had so much potential in me, but I just felt lazy. I felt stagnant. I felt, ugh. And that fueled low confidence, low action, low momentum. I broke all of it when I heard of an app called Alarmy. Alarmy is an app where you have to solve 3 maths equations or 5 maths equations to switch it off. Now I have that on my phone and my iPad. And I also read the book, The 5 a.m. Club, and I was so drawn to it. I just knew that if I could wake up earlier and get ahead before everyone else woke up, that would fuel confidence. That confidence will fuel bigger action. That bigger action would fuel more momentum. That momentum will just drive me forward. So that's what I did. I downloaded the app on my phone and my iPad. I left one in the kitchen, one in the living room. So to wake up, I'd have to solve, I think, 10 maths equations. Now, by the time I've done that, I'm wide awake. There's no point going back to bed. This is the power of removing friction. And I've been doing that now for the last 7 years. Now, if you do 365 times 2, that's like 750 hours or something like that I've created by using this times 5. I've just realized I've done it for about five or 6 years now. So 700 times 5 or 6, that's the amount of hours that 1,400, say, 1,400 extra hours that I've created by using this, by removing the friction, by essentially creating easier path to who I want to be. Robert Brault says we are kept from our goals not by obstacles, but by a path to lesser goals. When the lesser goals are easier than the actual goals you have, you will always go to the lesser goals. So I make being my better self the easier option. I design my environment to work with me. I design my environment to act as my willpower. I never want to wake up at 5 a.m, rarely, although this morning I woke up at 4 a.m, no alarm, just excited by the day. I rarely want to wake up at 5 a.m, but I design my environment to work with me, to bring out the best in me. So this is removing friction. It's like with this video, right? I have all the excuses not to record this video. My office, I share it with my daughter. She's asleep right now. My office has my nice setup, has my nice camera, all my nice lighting. But I was like, no, I'm just gonna record this on my iPhone. No fancy setup, no fancy editing. I'm just gonna fall in love with the process. For me, this video is not about the outcome. It's not about the numbers at all. I just wanna rebuild momentum by taking action, by recording content, regaining my confidence, having been off for the last 5 weeks. And perhaps you can tell I'm a little rusty with a few wayward comments there. But the point is, I'm just in love with the process, and I've removed the friction, and I've designed my environment to bring out the best in me. Now, the last, number 7, is go back to what you know. There's a great book, a very simple book called Peaks and Valleys, and I'll give you a summary. You don't need to go and read it. The summary is essentially do more of what got you up here and less of what got you down here. It's really, really that simple. And I'm sure and very confident you've had a time in your life that you were high momentum, that you felt in full flow. Go back to that time and think about what were you doing and what were you not doing, and essentially do more of the things that you were doing then and less of the things you were not doing, more of the things you were not doing. Yeah, you can tell I'm rusty. And the same with the valleys. So when you're at the bottom of the valley, do less of the things you were doing there and more of the things you were doing there. It's really, really that simple. And we all have our own momentum formula, our own flow formula. So next time you're in high momentum, write down what you're doing. Write down your actions, how you're thinking, the people you're surrounded with, because that's your formula for being in flow. That's your formula for high momentum. And essentially, your invite is to completely come back to that all the time and trust in that, even if you're not seeing the results. because the results are the lag, they're the outcome of the routines, the rituals, are trusting in the process. So hopefully this has been useful. Thank you for staying with me for so long. It's so good to be back, and I hope to be recording these way more regularly now. Well, I don't hope, I will be recording these way more regularly now. Thank you for watching this, and then sending you so much love. Have a beautiful day.